Okay, let's wait a couple of minutes to get everybody into the room. Let me see. Hey guys, welcome. See, a couple of people have joined. Tell us where you're from. Put into the chat bot or the chat box. I always say chat bot. Put into the chat box where you guys are coming from, and make sure that you click down on the to button where it says hosts and panelists. Click down on that. It will say to everyone. So let me just type in a message. Tell me where you're calling in from. Don't be shy. Everybody's very shy today. Münster. Very nice place, Julian. I know Münster. Well, I lie. I know the airport. That's about as far as as far as I know Münster, but the airport's very nice. Karen from London. Minden, and Julia's from Minden in Germany. I'm not sure where that is. Whereabouts in Germany is Minden, Julia? And Ava's calling in from Munich, from München. Good stuff. Okay, guys. So look, we'll get started just in the interest of time. If anybody has any questions at all, please feel free to ask. Just type it into the chat box here, and or you can put it into the Q&A tab, which you'll find as well. If you do have any questions at any point, please just pop it in there. I might be able to answer it on the go, or at least we'll have a bit of time at the end for a bit of Q&A. Okay, so I will get started. So quickly, who am I? Just to go through it, I won't spend too much time on this. So my background is in building fast-growing marketing teams of fast-growing SaaS companies. I've been a CMO for a number of years, and I've been focused on demand generation. And I'm currently a CMO at MARMIND, but I also work with a number of other businesses, advising them on their marketing and ABM strategies. So today I'm going to talk about account-based marketing. So one of the things that I wanted to know from you guys is, are you doing account-based marketing? Yes or no? Or what's ABM? So my colleague Peter is going to push it out as a poll, and we'll get everybody to answer that now shortly. So Peter, if you could push out the poll, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Peter. We'll give everybody just a second to answer. So guys, are you doing account-based marketing? Yes or no? Or what's ABM? We'll give everybody just another second now to answer. All right, Peter, I think we can close that poll, mate. So we'll see what the answer is. So 71% say yes, they are doing ABM. So that's good to know. And 29% say no. Interesting. So I think it's great to see that the majority of people are doing account-based marketing. I'll also be interested to hear a little bit more about what types of strategies you guys are putting in place and what level of account-based marketing you're doing. I think one of the things that I tried to get across, and I had this actually at the very start of the presentation, in that I think that the key to ABM is keeping it simple. So the key is KISS. So what do I mean by KISS? I mean, keep it simple, stupid. So one of the things that I like to make sure is that whenever I'm running ABM campaigns, that I'm not making rocket science out of this. So one of the things that I see quite often with companies that start speaking about ABM, they get a bit overwhelmed with account-based marketing and aren't really sure what it entails. And they think it involves a huge budgets. You need to invest in multiple technologies. Those technologies are very expensive. And to get any level of account-based marketing, you need to make massive investments. It's not the truth at all. I'm going to bring you guys through it in this presentation in terms of where you can make specific investments and how much those investments will be in specific technologies. But you can get started with massive budgets, or you can also get started with smaller budgets. There are certain plays that you can run with smaller budgets, and there's also certain plays that you can run with larger budgets. But I think the most important thing is that account-based marketing is looking at how we approach the accounts in which we want to do business with, which is basically what account-based marketing is, right? And that's the premise of all marketing. So What are the specific things that are going to help us gain more traction with the people that we want to buy from us? That's what marketing is. Now you're just getting a little bit more focused. So let's start with what the hell is ABM. I was going to put WTF in here, but I thought that might be a bit too brash. So let's leave it at what the hell is ABM, or what the heck is ABM. So first of all, when I first started my career, when I told you guys about like my focus coming from a lead generation / demand generation background, I would have looked at the world in a very funnel but focused way. And I still do to a certain extent, but the funnel that I'm currently looking at, an account-based model, is turned upside down. So traditionally, I would have said, okay, this is the amount of sales that I need to bring in. Therefore, I need to bring in that amount of opportunities, and therefore I need to bring in that amount of interest. And that interest might be broken down between MQLs and SQLs, so marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, etc. Right? Now, what I've started, so that's okay to still do that to a certain respect, but it is seen as rather traditional. So you're going out and you're just going out, pushing everything out into the world and hoping for some things to stick. Instead, in the account-based model, what you're doing is you're naming the accounts that you want to go after first, and then you're coming up with plays and means in which you can actually get in front of those accounts. So what are the things that are going to cause the most amount of traction on those named accounts? And that's not just from marketing, it's also from sales. So you've got sales development, you've got sales, and you've got marketing, all working together into that same list of accounts. Okay, so I want to break this down into 6 simple steps. So what are the steps that we can take in order for us to be successful in our account-based marketing efforts? Okay, so as I said, I like to keep it simple. That's why I'm breaking it down into 6 simple steps. Right? As said, if you have any questions at any time during these steps, please just pop it into the chat function, and we can keep it going from there. I hope that I'm not speaking too quickly for everyone. My Irish accent can be a little bit much sometimes, so hopefully everybody can understand what I'm saying, but I'm guessing it's okay because most people seem to be still on. So let's start with step 1. So our step 1 is defining our ICP. Okay, so what is an ICP? Well, it's not an insane clown puppy. So ICP is our ideal customer profile. Okay, so which companies are the ones that are going to get the most value out of what I have to offer as a business. Okay, now, depending on the size of business you may have some level, your level of confusion about what your ideal customer is going to be varied. Okay, so let me give you an example. If you have been a startup and you've grown very quickly, and now you're at a stage where you know that you really need to define what your ideal customer is, and you've got a larger team now, and now you're really trying to double down on what your commercial team looks like and how that commercial team operates, then you might be in some form of like confused state. Because what you're going to be looking at is you're going to be looking at your past customer data, understanding what types of customers you're working with, and basing it off of that and saying, okay, well, we work with these types of customers or these types of companies. Therefore, that must be our ideal customer. I would say, if you're in that stage as a startup or going from a startup to a scale up, you need to be careful, because a lot of the business that you would have brought on earlier in your business, maybe not what your product is actually built for. So you probably tried to sell to everybody and anything just in order to keep the lights on, right? Whereas actually your ideal customer might be slightly different to what you've been selling to. So it's important that you understand exactly what's happening within the product, understand what the best particular company is that will buy that product from you. There are certain tools to help you with that, okay? So if they're based in certain countries, so companies in the US might be better used for your products, for example, than companies in the UK or in Europe. For example, if you're offering a GDPR solution or some form of GDPR guidelines or something along those lines, it'll be better to sell that product in Europe rather than companies in the US that are only trading in the US. There could be technology that you know that your technology works particularly well with companies that have a specific tech. An example would be, let's take HubSpot and Salesforce. So as HubSpot, if I'm HubSpot, I know that my technology works particularly well with Salesforce and the integration is out of box. Therefore, what I might do is start to go after companies that are using Salesforce. Could be website behavior, understanding which companies are visiting your website that are interested in in the type of product which you have to offer. So there's specific tools out there that can help you understand which types of companies are visiting your site and digesting your marketing material and the material that's on your site. Because clearly, if you're writing if you've got certain visitors coming to your site, they're interested in learning more about the type of tool that you have, right? That may not fit into the exact ideal customer profile that you had in mind. So it's worth bearing in mind, understanding what type of companies are coming. For example, there's a tool called Lead Feeder that can help with that. Then there's also things like intent signals. So the type of offering that you're giving out into the market. What are the intent signals on the market to know which type of companies are interested in your product? For example, there are tools that can give you those intent signals. For example, I'll go back to MARMIND as an example. MARMIND is a marketing resource management tool. We offer things like budgeting, planning, and results interpretation. If I was interested in understanding companies, understanding my ideal customer a little bit better, I want to go see what type of companies are interested in or right now interested in budgeting software or planning software or results interpretation or all three of those above, or campaign planning. What I would do is I would use a tool, for example, like ZoomInfo, that would be able to then give me that intent signal and show me a list of companies that have been searching for that type of product in the past 90 days or the past 6 months, whatever it might be, right? So that gives me a better indication of what types of companies I want to go chase. Once you've got that, you need to make sure that you've got alignment internally within the organization, across the entire senior leadership team, across the sales team, marketing team. What you're going to do with that information is you're going to look at the different data points that make up your ideal customer. So let's take, for example, I want to sell to companies that are based in the US that are over 500 people in size, and they work particularly well with Salesforce, right? Just as an example. So what I'm going to do is I'm then going to use a data tool to pull that information. And that's going to be our second step. So our second step is building our total addressable market. So what's our total addressable market? Well, our total addressable market is the number of companies that are in a specific, that are within a specific area that we can sell to. So these are all of the companies exhaustively that we can sell to that are interested in a solution like ours, or could be interested in a solution like ours, based on what we know or have defined as our ideal customer. So what we've done is we've understood who our ICP is, and then we're looking at the specific data points on that ICP to determine how we can pull that total addressable market. So the easiest way to do this is to use an account intelligence provider, okay? And it was, okay, Andy, what the hell is an account intelligence provider? Well, something like ZoomInfo or Cognism or Seamless AI, or there's plenty of those out in the market. They all vary in different prices, but what it's essentially a large database of companies globally, and you can filter on technologies, locations, number of employees, revenue, industries that they operate in, et cetera, et cetera. So based off whatever you've defined as your ICP, you can get super granular in there. And then you should look at building out that list based on that. Now, if you don't have the money to go after one of those intelligence tools, no problem. If you've been at trade shows before, typically trade show providers will give you a list of the attendees that have been there, at least the companies that have been there. So you might already have those old trade show lists. Try to grab the data from there. You can look at competitive intelligence. So who are your competitors? For example, like for Salesforce might go and look at Microsoft Dynamics, right? And they go, okay, well, we know that one of our competitors is Microsoft Dynamics. So let's take a look at the type of companies that they're working with, or the exact companies that they're working with. And we might be able to scrape the companies that are on review sites, such as G2 or TrustRadius or Capterra. Or what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to their website and look at the customers that they're working with there, name all of the customers that they're working with, extract that, start building your list. Right? You can also use things like job ads as well for that. So there's plenty of areas that you can use in order to grab data from. The easiest one being one of those intelligence solution providers. As said, I've got a couple that I would recommend. I'm going to get to that now in a minute, but off the top of my head, there's two in particular that stand out. If you have a bit of budget for it, would be ZoomInfo or Cognism. Okay. So once you start building your TAM, you've got this list of accounts, okay? So it's like, okay, I've got this list of accounts. What do I do next? That's what brings us to step 3. We need 2 things. So we've got our yellow pages, which is our account list, okay? So now we need to go find the buyers on those accounts. So we've more or less said, okay, well, we know the accounts that we want to do business with. So who are the people from those accounts that we need to start engaging? Okay. So typical rule of thumb, right, would be that per account, you should be looking at somewhere between 6 to 10 prospects to target on each account. So why is that? So there's a company called Terminus. People may or may not be familiar with Terminus, but Terminus were one of the pioneers when it comes to account-based marketing. They offer an account-based marketing platform, which is an ads platform. You upload your list of accounts, and then they'll start targeting your accounts with specific advertising per account via many different channels, right? It's an expensive tool, but very, very strong tool, but expensive. But they did a piece of research a couple of years ago, which asked the question about how many people do you need to sell on an account in order to close it? And this is where the sort of the account-based approach came into play, and that you should be engaging with at least 6 prospects on every single account, okay? Because there's at least 6 prospects in the decision-making cycle to closing a large enterprise deal. So it's a minimum of 6. The larger the account, the larger the revenue from that account, the more likely there's going to be more prospects on it to have to close, right? So what you want to be doing is, once you have the account list, you want to be building out your phone book. So who are the people from those accounts that we want to go target? Okay, so what we need to do is we need to define who are the buyers on each of those accounts. So let's go back to us from MARMIND's perspective. We've got a couple of people that will be interested. So we've got senior leadership and marketing. We've got, which is C level. Then we've also got VP level. Then we've also got specific areas of the marketing team that might be interesting, which would be, for example, marketing operations managers, CRM managers, anybody that's involved in pumping data across from the marketing team and interpreting data. So we've got a number of different profiles on the account that we want to be targeting with specific messages. So we want to be getting all of those job titles from those specific people that we sell to on the account. And then we want to be building our buying committee per account. Okay. And you might go, oh God, that sounds very difficult to do. But again, it's not. If you have your hands on one of these data tools, it's very easy to do, right? There are all-encompassing tools, for example, like ZoomInfo and Cognism, like I have here. But there are cheaper tools that just focus on this part, which is actually the contact part, which would be something like Lead IQ or Lusha, right? With Lead IQ, for example, you can pull individuals. Same goes for Seamless AI. That's another tool that's quite cheap, quite cost effective, so it's not going to break the bank. But what you want to be doing is bringing in as many of those contacts as possible to be able to give those over to the sales team, for the sales team to be then able to go and start reaching out to them. Okay, this is a very sales focused approach, right? That specific part about building out the phone book is just helping the sales team understand who to target on specific accounts so that they can start doing their cadence out to those accounts. So for example, emails, LinkedIn mails, phone calls, voicemails, voice notes, videos, etc., should be going out to those prospects. Marketing can get on it as well with doing things like direct mail. So sending something in the post to that specific prospect on that specific account. You've already mapped out who all the prospects are. Then what you need to be doing is trying to engage with each of those prospects so that your brand becomes relevant. Okay. You can also get super down and dirty with it, and that you can start targeting on a person level. There are tools like Influ2, for example, which is a super interesting tool where you're able to target individuals. It gets super super direct and super targeted. I would say though, these tools can get very expensive, but on the top end of things, if you want to keep it simple, keep it cheap, invest in a tool like Lead IQ and start building out that phone book for your sales guys to be able to start picking up the phone, and for marketing to be able to send out things in the post, right? We're going to get to the plays a little bit later on, but first of all, I want to get to step 4. So step 4 is about aligning the sales and marketing efforts now. So we know who our ideal customer is. We've built out that list of accounts. This is our Bible of accounts, right? Marketing and sales both know exactly who we want to go and target, right? So now what we need to do is we need to align both of those teams together so that we're both firing at the same list of accounts at the same time. And in order to do that, we need to solidify ourselves a bit with technology. Now you look at this and you go, oh dear Lord, Andy, that's so many technologies. These are just examples of technologies that you can use in each one of these areas, okay? So let me start at the top. So you have your HubSpot CRM, you have Salesforce, you have Microsoft Dynamics. You can use any one of those. You don't need to use every single one of them together, right? Salesforce, just as a side note, Salesforce and HubSpot play very nicely together, by the way, just as an FYI. HubSpot, I would use, that would be my marketing automation platform of choice, right? And what I'm doing is, if you look on the left-hand side here, I'm using my data providers to be able to push information into HubSpot or into Salesforce, push that back into my data provider to understand a little bit more about the accounts. For example, if I want to find out more infographic information, firmographic information, I'm able to pull it from those for Cognism, Zoom Info, etc., and push that automatically back into my CRM. Then what I'm doing is, as well, I'm also using my ABM platforms. It doesn't actually have to be an ABM platform. It could be something like LinkedIn, as an example. I could be using LinkedIn, pushing information from my HubSpot into LinkedIn to tell LinkedIn which accounts to go target based on some fields changing from my sales team. So if my marketing team has gone and said to my sales team, hey, every time that you add an account and you click a box, I'll make sure that that particular company gets added to our ad campaigns that see ads about X, Y, Z, right? Super simple to do. And with HubSpot, you've got the integration between both, okay? At the same time, I've also got some intelligence in the middle, which gives me some interesting website visit information, give me information about which accounts have been visiting my website, not just coming and downloading stuff, but actually coming to the website, interacting with different pages. They don't actually need to convert, right? That again is then being pushed back into your CRM, back into your marketing automation platform. And at the same time, both your marketing and your sales team are also going against this engage account list, okay? The target account list. And that target account list is coming from our data providers, and it's also being hit by our marketing teams on our different targeting platforms. And I'm going to get into, as I said, the plays later on and what exactly you can do in order to do that. This now just seems super complex, but it just shows all of the different elements that need to be running together and how each of these need to make sure that sales and marketing are aligned. Now, I also put MARMIND in here as well, because MARMIND actually plays an interesting role across all of this, because once you're doing your planning, your budgeting, and your results interpretation of your account-based marketing, MARMIND sits on top of all of this and takes in all of the information in terms of your results, whilst at the same time also looking at how you can plan out campaigns, how you can plan out those plays, how you can budget your entire marketing, your entire account-based marketing approach. That would all be managed in MARMIND, and everything will be spoken to within MARMIND from these different platforms that I've listed here. So I'm just going to continue on. I'm going to stop for a moment. If anybody has any questions, please feel free just to drop it into the chat function there. I'm more than happy to answer anything that people have, yeah? So just cracking on here. So as I mentioned before, like my number one topic typically when it comes to marketing and account-based marketing in particular, the most important thing is alignment. Without alignment between the marketing org and the sales org in particular, this account-based approach will not work, okay? Because we're looking at specific things. If I go back again and I look at, for example, the website visits part here, this is not saying, hey, I'm after bringing in a specific lead from a specific account. No, it's saying a specific account has visited the website. They haven't given us their details, but they've come and they've digested a piece of content. They may have looked at a blog post, or they may have landed on a request a demo page without actually converting. They may have done a number of actions without actually giving us their details. So as a marketer, I want to make sure that our sales team is actually on that information and that we're actually able to do something with it. And a good sales and marketing alignment team will make sure that, for example, the marketing team will be pushing the sales team to say, hey, have you looked at your lead feeder? Have you looked at your lead forensics to make sure that you're keeping an eye on which companies are visiting the site? Because that then gives you the interest, or the interesting thing from a sales perspective, to understand, okay, like these companies are interested in what I have to offer. It gives me some intent data in terms of what they're at and what they're doing. And from a marketing perspective, it also says, okay, the content that I'm creating is driving the right types of accounts, but they may not be actually converting, but they're actually coming to the site and they're digesting what we have to say. Now it's up to the sales team to turn that into pipeline, okay? So this is why alignment is super important. And most companies say that alignment does exist, whereas actually the truth of it is far from it, okay? In reality, like only 8% of marketing and sales teams are aligned. 8%. So that means out of 100 companies, only 8 of them actually have good sales and marketing alignment. Okay, so most people say that they're fully aligned, but the truth in the matter is that they're not at all. Okay, so this is not research that I've done. This is coming from Gartner. They did a massive survey a couple of years ago, and they found that only 8% of teams were actually aligned. Okay, so I'm going to get to the next step, which is after the alignment step, and this is the playbook. These are the different plays that you can do from a marketing and sales perspective in order to bring your ABM game out. Okay, so what are the marketing channels that we can look at? So one specific marketing channel that has been great over the past years from an account-based marketing perspective, that's super simple to get set up, that you don't need to recreate the wheel with, is LinkedIn. So what you can do is you can create a list of accounts, your TAM, as we mentioned before, your total addressable market. Take that list of accounts, upload it into LinkedIn, and start targeting those with different ads. So for example, you could do direct lead gen ads. You could do specific ads based around opportunities that are in your pipeline. You could do get them to like your page, and then once they like your page, then you can start targeting them with more content and so on. So there are so many opportunities that you can do with LinkedIn based on that account list. The only thing I would say to you guys is, if you're looking to use LinkedIn and use a target account list with LinkedIn rather than the native ad platform that they have, I would suggest that you look at trying to have a list of somewhere in the region of 5,000 accounts. If you don't have in the region of 5,000 accounts, it won't work well, because what's going to happen is your cost per lead is going to be super high, and you may even run into the risk of not getting a matched audience. If the matched audience is not larger than 1 million, I think, then it's in terms of the number of people, then you're not going to manage to actually be able to run that campaign. So when you say, you might go, oh, Andy, that's 5,000 accounts, that's a lot. So when you're doing this total addressable market piece, please bear in mind that out of the total addressable market, salespeople should be only getting a maximum of something in the region of 100 to 200 accounts, depending on your type of business and depending on the type of salesperson. Whereas marketing should be taking the entire market rather than just those 200 that the salesperson might have. And marketing should be targeting all of them to make you relevant. So that what's happening with the salesperson is that accounts are swapping in and out as they're interacting with you. But they should have their fixed set accounts, maybe 200. Right? So don't let any confusion lie in there. Salespeople, 200 accounts, marketing 5,000, but the 5,000 accounts are all relevant to us as a business. Okay, so from a LinkedIn perspective, LinkedIn is very much focused on lead gen, very much focused on conversions. As of late, I just will note that LinkedIn has made some changes, which has made it more difficult, but it's definitely worth giving it a shot. I think LinkedIn has gotten to the stage now where it's gotten much more expensive to do this type of approach, but it's still definitely worth it, because your entire audience is guaranteed to be on it. Okay, Facebook is not. Don't be expecting lead generation from Facebook. In order to get good reach, in order to get it in front of more people, you're able to use a native ad platform on Facebook in order to get a bit more reach. It's, again, Facebook is not a great tool for this, just generally, but it's cheap. And it's super easy to get in front of people. Okay, so you can look at people that have visited specific pages. You can base off the type of likes that they have. It's an interesting enough audience. I'm seeing people do it with Instagram at the moment as well, which is also super interesting. So it's worth taking a look at and also doing a little bit of testing on. Right? Again, it's not an expensive channel, and it's mainly to help you with getting your brand in front of more people. Do not be expecting this as a performance channel. What do I mean by that? Don't be expecting major leads to be flowing in from Facebook. All right. So one other platform that I see, or one other area that I see that works quite nicely as well, if you have a bit of budget for it, is third-party publishers. So what does that mean? So, for example, every industry will have some level of publication that is targeted at specific companies in that industry. So let me take, for example, in marketing, I might be going after marketing for e-commerce, right? I'm going after e-commerce marketers. Those e-commerce marketers, for example, I would be able to buy a list or send out an email out to eMarketer, which is a database. And what they will do is they will send an email that has some of my content as well as some of my to one of my web pages where they're able to download my piece of content, and it looks as though it's coming from me. For example, coming from MARMIND. However, it's actually being sent by eMarketer out to their database. What I will get from that will be what I will get from that is a ton of leads. That is a performance channel. For that, however, it is going to cost a fair bit of money. Depending on which region you're focused on, it can get more expensive. For example, DACH can be a particularly expensive region to do that with. And sometimes you actually end up having to pay for the right leads there, and it can get more expensive as you pay for the right leads. So again, search is another good platform to go after. So SEO, everybody knows that SEO is important to chase. You should be refreshing old content, creating new content, repurposing content, taking blog posts, turning them into gated content that you can use on your other channels, for example, on LinkedIn. A lot of people say to me, hey, I don't have time to be creating content that I'm able to gate and put out on LinkedIn as a lead gen piece. What I say back to that is, well, do you have a blog? And people say, yes, we have a blog. Take some of your old blog posts that are driving quite a bit of traffic and turn it into a document. Put that against a form on LinkedIn and try that. You don't need to recreate the wheel here, okay? Keep it simple. Take the stuff that's working, gate it, push it out, okay? When it comes to search, in terms of search engine advertising, be careful with this. You can end up spending a huge amount of money and not getting a huge amount of return. So you need to make sure that you do the research on your keywords and make sure that you're targeting the right keywords. And when you are targeting specific keywords, it's important to understand if they are the ones that are going to be the most profitable to you. I've worked at companies before where we've bid a huge amount of money on keywords that were driving a lot of conversions. But when I started to go in and actually really scratching at the surface to understand, are those downloads or are those conversions actually turning into revenue or turning into deals, I found that none of them were. So actually what I was finding is it was bringing in a lot of leads, but none of those leads were actually turning into anything. They looked somewhat interesting, but they were actually confused about what we had to offer as a company because we were targeting a specific keyword, which the company sort of did that I was working for, but at the same time, it wasn't really. So people were ending up confused. And even though they were target companies, they weren't really interested in pushing any forward with it. So if you are doing search, just do your research. Make sure you understand which keywords are important to your buyers based on the solution that you actually have to offer. So one thing that's very close to my heart that I really like and that works really well is direct mail. So what is direct mail? Direct mail is just putting stuff in the post. So come up with a campaign, putting it in an envelope, putting it in a box and sending it out to your customer. It works so well because many companies aren't doing it. All it is push it out, pick up the phone. Hey, did you get that thing I sent you in the post? Yes or no? Oh, I did get that thing. That was super interesting. The most important thing is that you're super creative with it. I'm going to get to a couple of plays that I've done in the past that were particularly creative so that people understand what I mean by that. But there are some tools out there to help you scale this, but you can also do this completely by yourself. It just takes a little bit of heavy lifting. But if you're looking to scale it, there are tools like ReachDesk out there that can really help with this. So let's take a look at sales channels. So from a sales perspective, and one of the things we do here at MARMIND is we have a salesperson. We have SDRs, so sales development reps. And with the sales development reps, as well as the sales people are doing, they're putting our prospects into certain cadences. So it's day one, send X. Day two, connect with them on LinkedIn. Day three, give them a call. Day four, do this. Day five, do that, etc., etc. So I've run these types of cadences before, and I've done cadences that are up to 40 steps. People might say, oh my God, 40 steps is crazy, Andy. What the hell are you doing? It's actually not, because the steps aren't all like pick up the phone 40 times. It's little bits in between. It's like a comment of theirs on LinkedIn. Also comment on something else that they've also commented on LinkedIn. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to build this relationship throughout, okay? There are tools out there that can help you with this. For example, HubSpot Sales or Outreach or SalesLoft or SalesView. If you're using HubSpot, I think that this is probably like, instead of investing in a new tool altogether, I would continue using HubSpot. HubSpot's perfectly good for that. A number of the companies that I work with use HubSpot Sales and are super happy with it. It's a good, solid tool, and it gives you a good overview of what the next steps are and helps you get things out en masse. I will put a caveat in this though. I will say that the best outreach, especially in account-based marketing, when it comes to selling, is trying to get as personalized as possible with those target accounts. So what you want to avoid is mass sending out to thousands of accounts all at once. Instead, what you want to be doing is focusing on creating specific messaging for specific accounts, getting the marketing team to help feed that messaging based on content they're creating, based on our total addressable market list of accounts. Okay. So now it gets to the things that I've done in order to gain traction into the accounts that I go after. So I've got a playbook. So when I come and work with a company, I pull a playbook out of my back pocket and I know this is the type of company, or this is the type of thing that I know what will work in this specific type of company. So let's take, for example, direct mailers. So I've mentioned a couple of times that direct mail is like my go-to. I love direct mail. I think it's brilliant. I don't think enough people are doing it. And I think it always yields good results, right? So this is an example of a direct mailer that I did a number of years ago. And I used to work for a company called Exponia, as you see here. And what we did was every season, so winter, spring, summer, and autumn, we would run a campaign which we push out to major accounts all across Europe, okay? For this specific campaign, what we were doing was we were competing against the likes of Salesforce, Adobe, Oracle, major cloud platforms. We were a marketing automation provider for e-commerce retailers, okay? So one of our arguments was, and one of our unique selling points was, even though we were much smaller than all those larger accounts, or much larger vendors, was that we were built from the ground up. We weren't a company that was put together via many acquisitions, unlike our major competitors at Salesforce, Adobe, and Oracle. They were combined. Their marketing clouds have been a combination of acquisitions. Salesforce, for example, their marketing cloud was through an acquisition from a company called ExactTarget. Now, typically, there's problems with that when a company goes and acquires. There's two problems. There's technology and people. The technology is, neither technology are built so that they're supposed to talk to one another and work together. And at the same time, the people that built the original technology are typically the first ones to leave as soon as a company is acquired. So you've got the original people that weren't with that built the technology leaving the company, and you've got a new company coming in and taking over the tech and trying to get it connecting, whilst also trying to keep everything running at the same time. It can be a mess, right? And the people that are affected most are their customers. So we recognized that and we started sending this out to customers of theirs. And what it was we called it Datanga, because it was about building your data blocks from the ground up. And we bought Jenga sets, put this sleeve over every Jenga set along with a messaging card. The messaging card said, how will you stack up against the data blocks? And then we did a little bit of a play against Salesforce, Adobe, and Oracle, asked people the question, hey, are you happy with your current provider that's been built from a number of acquisitions rather than a company that's been built from the ground up like ourselves? And with this one campaign, we actually managed to get traction in one of the largest retailers in Europe, and actually won that account based on, that was the first interaction that we had with them. And we actually ended up winning that account. So this was a particularly expensive campaign style play. It probably cost us about 20K to get it out to all the major retailers, but we ended up closing an account that was worth customer lifetime value of about $1 million. So it was definitely worth us investing that 20K in. A very simple version that I love to do, and this is an example that we did with MARMIND quite recently that went down interestingly, was that what we wanted to do was we wanted to get a message out and just be a little bit different. And there's one specific technique that I haven't created, but I know the person that has, it's a guy called Dale Dupree. He's created this technique called the crumpled letter technique. So what you do is you write a letter to your prospect, you crumple it up, you put it in an envelope, and you send it in the post. And people get that in the post. They go, who the heck sent me a crumpled up letter in the post? Who does that? And then you uncrumple it. And then what happens is you've got some of your messaging on that crumpled up piece of paper. And then you follow up with a sales call. Hello, this is Andy calling from MARMIND. I see that you received that crumpled letter in the post. And I said, oh, you're the guy that sent me that piece of paper in the post that was all crumpled. Yes. It's just a matter about just getting a little bit of something different. So at MARMIND, what we were trying to do was we wanted to do our version of the crumpled letter technique. So we see ourselves as a marketing cockpit to have a good overview of everything that's happening in the marketing team. And that's what we want to do for CMOs and senior marketing leaders. So we see ourselves as a marketing cockpit. And then what we wanted to do is we wanted to put in the message, we see ourselves as a marketing cockpit. Let us help you make your marketing fly. And what we did then was we created paper airplanes out of that note, popped it in the post, pushed it out, and then we had our SDR then follow up with it afterwards. Super simple, super cheap, and it was really interesting from a campaign perspective. And people were picking up the phone saying, hey, are you the guys that sent me that paper airplane in the post? Super weird, but it works, right? Because what you're trying to do is just stand out against all of the other stuff that's being sent out by other competitors. Super simple, but it works nicely. Again, focus on adding value. So one of my plays is to try to come up with as much content as possible that's just adding value to your audience, rather than just going through too many demos of what your product is. Every webinar, etc., that I'll do, or every video that I'll do, or interview that I'll do, I'll mention the company that I'm doing it with. So, for example, on this, with MARMIND, I've mentioned how MARMIND can be very beneficial in your account-based approach. But this is not a webinar about MARMIND. This is a webinar about how to help people do account-based marketing better. MARMIND plays its role, but it's not what everything is about. And I see a lot of companies making the mistake of trying to push their product down people's throats in every single thing that they're doing. And people are like, hold on, this isn't offering any value. So first and foremost, what you should try to do always is try to offer value in everything that you're doing. So what does that actually mean? So on the left here, I've got an example of a video series that I did, the B2B Rebellion. And what I would do is I would ask every single one of my guests to give at least 3 to 4 key takeaways in which people can go ahead and start working on immediately without spending any money or giving a massive amount of budget towards, that they can actually go and implement at their organizations immediately. And it didn't have to do anything with lead feeder. It didn't have to offer any lead feeder tips at all. It was sales and marketing tips that people could go and do and implement immediately. Same thing as what I'm doing here at MARMIND at the moment. We've got a podcast. If you haven't been listening to it, you should. It's on our website. So we have invited good, solid marketing leaders that have years of experience to come and give their advice and tips and things that they're seeing that are happening at the moment in the marketing space. Again, offering value based on people's experiences, not pushing our product down people's throats. Next thing is webinars, as I just mentioned there, and I'm not going to get into it in any much more detail, but offer a webinar that's based on adding value rather than something that's focused on product. Sales and marketing cadence is another part that I play a big role in. So I look at, as I mentioned before, sometimes even having a 40-step sales cadence. I really help the sales team with that by offering them specific pieces of content that they could use in their outreach, for example. And at the same time, what I'm doing is as well, I'm also having other marketing touches in there as well, which is including newsletters, ebook downloads, whatever it might be, getting that out to my database via email, right? And then the last part of this, before we finish up, is around measuring the success of account-based marketing, because we've talked about like doing all of these awesome things, but how are we being sure that it's actually working, right? So what we need to make sure is that we need to make sure that we define clear processes and definitions across the sales and marketing team. And that includes across all of what are our target accounts, what do those accounts look like, and do they fit into specific tiers? Is tier 1 like our top tier of accounts that we need to go and chase, and that's our top tier that we got more money to spend on? Are our salespeople and SDRs familiar with the marketing campaigns that are happening? And at the same time, are marketing familiar with what's happening in the outreach? How are marketing help fund that outreach? Okay. And then we need to look at, okay, what are our KPIs and OKRs? And we'll get to that now in a minute, the KPIs and tracking that. But the number one rule that I always say is that alignment piece. So you've got your sales and marketing aligned, but when it comes to account-based marketing, it makes sense to get the entire organization aligned in it, because it won't be just sales and marketing that will be involved. It's actually post-sales stuff as well. So client success should also be involved, because if we're continuing our customer marketing after our prospect marketing, then that should be in line with whatever's happening on the prospect side. So we need to make sure that everybody is working together on this. Okay, so if we look at our KPIs, I break it down into 3 different areas. So very simple, top of funnel stuff, meaningful engagements. How many of our accounts are visiting our website? How many of them are interacting with content? How many are downloading content? How many are receiving direct mails? How many are we meeting at events? All of these different things. I need every single touch point tracked, and I need that as a top of funnel metric to give me an understanding of how many of our accounts are engaged. Okay. Then at the same time, I want to be able to track our success further down the funnel to understand how much pipeline are we creating based on our account-based marketing efforts from a marketing side and from a pure sales side. So are we bringing in what ebook downloads, or are they visiting us at events, or are we holding specific webinars, whatever it might be, that are causing that initial interest from that brand or that company that would be sourced? And then I would look at assisted. So if sales are even pushing that, or sales have managed to open the pipeline or whatever it might be, are there other marketing touches on that account that will help assist that salesperson actually getting it closed? It gives me an idea both of our teams are working together. If one's out of proportion with the other, it just gives us an idea. This is all super simple to track, by the way, using a platform like Salesforce. You can also push that information then into MARMIND via a tool like Salesforce, right? Then at the same time, I want to be looking at not only pipeline created, so opportunities created, I want to look at how much business has been closed off the back of that. And again, I want to be looking at a pure source, sales versus marketing, and then also assisted based on touches that are happening on that pipeline, right? So that's it for today, guys. I flew through that in 45 minutes, and I know that was a lot of information. I know it's a bit like drinking from a fire hose there, but that's basically it in 6 simple steps in terms of how to get started in account-based marketing and some of the plays that you can go and do. Before we finish up, does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to put it into the chat box. In the meantime, if anybody wants to find me, you can get me on LinkedIn. I just kind of push my details in here. People can find me on LinkedIn. Please feel free to add me. Should you have any questions, concerns, comments at all, anything you want to learn, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to have a conversation. I'll just check if there's any questions come in the Q&A. Oh, okay. Okay, if there's no questions, guys, I think we'll give everybody 14 minutes back into their day today. Thank you so much for attending, guys. It's been great, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take it easy.